Hey guys, welcome back to another Bookmas video slash Vlogmas. I really don't know what it's called because these aren't vlogs, so we're gonna go with Bookmas. Anyway, today we get to talk about one of my favorite topics that I've realized I really like in books, and that is cults. I really enjoy reading about cults. I found this out about myself about a year ago, and today I want to share some of the cultish books that I've read. I'm not really going to define what a cult is here. Some of these books are definitely more heavy in the cult than others, but these all have some kind of like cultish elements. And with the exception of one, they're all going to be fiction books. I want recommendations. If you guys have cultish books to recommend, please leave them in the comments below. I have tried reading Educated twice and decided I give up on that one. I'm not sure if true cult stories are really for me, cultish nonfiction. I don't think so, but there might be an exception. So with the exception of one, the rest of these are going to be fiction books that I'm talking about today. So the very first one that I have to start out with is the one that introduced me to this world of cults in books, and this is The Line Between by Tosca Lee. So this is actually a like thriller, I'd say more like suspense story, where we follow a girl. She's actually right at the beginning of the book. She is kicked out of her cult, but I don't know, let's say the cult kind of continues to try to track her down because of some things that are going on. This also happens during a pandemic. I think this is just a national pandemic, which was funny because it was written before 2020. Yeah, and this one, I really enjoyed it. This is currently a duology. I'm not sure if there's going to be more books in the series or not, but this was a really good introduction to the series and a really good introduction just into the world of cults. Then my next two books kind of go hand in hand because they are book 1 and book 4. Yeah, books 1 and 4 in a series. So I have A Cry from the Dust by Carrie Stewart Parks. This one is cult-ish, let's say. She is the main character, her name is Gwen Marcy. She is a forensic artist, and in this book she is dealing with a group of militant Mormons called the Avenging Angels, and there are some instances where they come across a cult in here. It's not a huge element, but it definitely exists and has like it's an underlying threads throughout the book. So cults are definitely a part of this one. But then in book 4 of the series, Portrait of Vengeance. Okay, I was wrong. It's actually book 3, When Death Draws Near. I read these books like back to back and forgot which one was which. This one we follow Gwen again. So book 1 has some cultish vibes, book 3 has some cultish vibes. So she is a forensic artist and she is kind of like on assignment here. And she is looking into a serial rapist, but then kind of somehow comes across this side job, which is to look into a serpent handling church. And there are suspicious things going on. Some of the people in the church are dying from poisoning, lots are dying from serpent handling, and so there's kind of like cultish elements in this one as well. Honestly, I would just recommend this entire series. I've said before, the main character, she really rubs me the wrong way. She's not a character that I really like, but I feel like the mystery suspense part of the book is so worth reading that it's okay that the character drives me insane. Next up is actually a middle grade written book, but I would probably not give this to a middle grade kid. This is My Life with the Liars by Kayla Carter. This one, yeah, like, so it's written for middle grade, but I feel like a lot of the themes are pretty heavy, so I wouldn't really give this to a kid that's too young. In this one we follow a girl who has just been taken out of the cult, and it more focuses on the trauma and what it has done to her, how she has no idea what life in the real world is like, and also just how brainwashed it has made her. This cult, they were living in the light and the lights were always on, and it also talks about like some of the psychology behind what that actually does to a person when you are never in darkness, like don't ever sleep in darkness or anything. And it's interesting to hear her inner thoughts as she tries to get back to the cult, because this one, they were told, I think it's when they turned 13, the day they turn 13, then they enter this like light ceremony thing. I can't remember what it's called. And she is a couple days away from turning 13. So she's constantly trying to get back to this place. And it's just interesting to see kind of how brainwashed she is because of what she's been told in her younger years. So I highly recommend this one. Kayla Carter does a really good job. I've read 2 of her books and she does a really good job with hitting some really deep topics and doing them really well. Next up, I've got Argosy Junction. Shalise from And Read Another Chapter actually sent this book to me because she knows about my enjoyment of cultish elements in books, and so she sent me this one. This one we follow a girl named Lane who her family recently, I don't know, a few years ago anyway, got out of a cult called the Brethren. And this one is very fascinating because the Brethren started out as a church that was trying to follow the Bible. And what is always interesting to me is to see how things just like slowly slide away. And I really enjoyed seeing kind of her thought process of how she didn't trust any kind of religion after this because she'd been burned. And then just to kind of see some of the healing take place throughout this book. She has a friend who helps her through it, and really like they talk it out a lot, and I really appreciated seeing that. Yeah, I would highly recommend this one. Another middle grade cult book that I read is called The Prophet Calls, and in this one our main character wants to play the violin in like a local, not like a concert, like a little local venue kind of thing. And right around that time the prophet calls and says that music can't be played out and about like that, and our main character is reaching that age, once again it's 13, where she's not really allowed to leave the compound area, and so her and her brother try to sneak away. And it's interesting once again just to get that glimpse. This one involves a polygamist cult. It's interesting just to get a little glimpse into what is potentially going on in some of those cults in the world. Okay, now we'll go back to the like mystery suspense. This one is Nightfall by Nancy Mell. This one, we follow a girl whose aunt was in the cult. So she grew up in her aunt's house, and her aunt was part of this cult called The Circle. And they had the book, which was their version of the Bible. And it intertwines with a serial killer as well. And it's interesting to see some of the, once again, the trauma, the like kind of like PTSD. She wasn't even a part of the cult, but was around when things were going on. And it's interesting to see how that has traumatized her and stuck with her through her years. And this one was very interesting cult to read about because it was very underground. No one actually used their real names, or most people didn't anyway, and a lot of times you don't even know who is all involved in the cult. Yeah, I found this one to be a very fast read. A cultish book that I didn't really enjoy, but I know a lot of people that have, is The Girl Behind the Red Rope by Ted Dekker. This one we follow a cult that is, really the book is very much like the movie The Village. They're out in the middle of nowhere. They have a red rope around the perimeter, and as long as you stay in the perimeter, you're gonna be fine. But if you go out, then apparently I can't remember what the evil thing was called, but it will come get you. And so this is like a supernatural suspense type book. I have since, I think this was my last Dekker book that I read, I've decided he's not an author for me, but it did make me think a lot about spiritual warfare, and I appreciate what the book made me think about, but it wasn't my favorite. But if you're into cult books, you might want to check that one out. One that I started that I ended up not finishing is called The Sacred Lives of Minoblai, I think. That one I read about 100 pages of it, and I felt like it wasn't really going anywhere, but it was interesting at the same time. The cult they had was called the Kevinian cult, where they followed a prophet named Kevin, and our main character, I feel like the point in the book where I was at, so many questions weren't answered, so I don't really know what's going on, but for some reason her hands had been cut off, and at the point when the book starts, she is going into like juvenile detention for killing someone. But so much is unexplained. I don't like books. That's not true. I do like to not know everything because I want to get sucked in, but I felt like it was just going on for a long time and I still had no idea what was going on. So if people tell me that one is a good one, I might pick that one up again. At this point, without anyone pressuring me, I don't think I will, but it's really high. I was looking at lists of books that include cults, and that one is really high on people's lists, so I don't know, maybe I should give it another try. Okay, and then for my single non-fiction recommendation, I used to be part of a book club at my library, and we read I Am Hutterite. This is not a book I would have picked up on my own, I don't think. Yeah, so this is a true story of a girl, well, she was a girl when she was part of the Hutterite community, but then her parents left, which I think is a great person to be writing such a book. I feel like if you are the person to leave a community, you have extra baggage and bias, whereas if you are a child who has been taken with your parents, I feel like they're a little bit more unbiased, and I was astounded by some of the stuff that happened. I mean, the book is a true story. Most of it takes place in Manitoba, but where I live in Saskatchewan, there are lots of Hutterites around. And obviously, you can't judge everyone by someone's actions, things that happened in a book. But it's interesting to read about some of the things that happen, and it's like you have no idea what can be going on around you. So yeah, if you can get your hands on that one, it may have been a little bit dry in times, but at the same time, I think it's worth reading because if you're interested in cults, there's a lot that goes on in there. Okay, so that is all for me talking about books about cults. If you have some recommendations for me, please leave them in the comments below, specifically if they are fiction recommendations, maybe some non-fiction too, but only if they're like spectacular. Thanks again for watching, guys.